Well, joining me now on CEO Hub is the CEO of Skilled Group, Mick McMahon, who's been in the job for just over a year now. Thanks for joining us, Mick.
Thank you, Alan. Yeah.
Mick, tell us about how you got the job. Were you headhunted? Were you looking around for a job? You were COO, Chief Operating Officer of Coles at the time.
Yeah, well, I'd spent most of my career with Shell and then joined Coles to run Coles Express, just in time for the takeover drama to play out.
With Coles Express, you were effectively in charge of a joint venture.
Yeah, the joint venture, yes.
But did you at that point have to transfer to Coles employment?
Yeah, yes, I did, yeah. So I had come back from overseas and left Shell and then joined Coles Express and joined Coles and running that business from its initial setup through rapid growth phase. And then on transition to Wesfarmers, I was asked to be COO across the Coles businesses, which was a fantastic experience for a period of time.
Is this while they didn't have a CEO?
Yeah, through the transition.
So you were effectively running Coles?
Yeah, for that, both the lead up to Wesfarmers taking over and then some 7, 8, 9 months, whatever it was, until Ian McLeod came into place. And then I stayed on for another period of time after that. So in that period, I mean, I'm someone who likes running things. I like either growing things rapidly or turning around businesses, so I like a challenge.
Were you disappointed not to get the top job at Coles?
No, because I wasn't a supermarket retailer. Right. So while I like to run things, yeah, and coming out of more the the oil industry background, running supermarkets is very much a detail game.
You never really expected to get that job?
No, I didn't. I enjoyed working with Wesfarmers. I learned a lot in that 18 months, couple of years in terms of the transition and the crossover period with Wesfarmers. But at the end of the day, I wanted to run a business and to find one that needed a turnaround where the fundamentals are good, but the application of some sound management and some of the things that I can bring would grow value for shareholders.
And interestingly, you had an interregnum working with TPG. You got to know them when they were trying to take over Coles. What did you actually do for them?
Well, I was joined them as a senior advisor, but really advising on the nature of the opportunities that we were looking at from the real detail business perspective, not just the investment perspective in the energy retail type sectors, and from my own perspective, trying to find an opportunity that was worth putting my own time into, but my own money as well for the next 4 or 5 years.
Behind the private equity firm.
Yeah, so if
they bought something, you'd probably run it.
I would then operate it, and really make a commitment to turning around that business, on a private equity basis. So I suppose after 25 years of successfully turning around businesses and growing businesses for other people and other shareholders, I was a bit more interested in, could I increase my own position and my own risk, I suppose, and find something really worth doing for the next 4 or 5 years. Well,
so did Skilled identify you, or did you identify them?
No, Skilled identified me or came looking. Broadly speaking, I was familiar with the sector because we had been looking at turnaround type opportunities. So for me, it fitted the profile in terms of strong latent properties in the business, strong brand, strong market position, perhaps lost its way a little bit through the GFC, not the only business that had done that, and therefore in need of some significant care and attention for a period of time, but one that I felt that my skills and background could make a real difference to.
Now, Skilled is something that was started by and dominated by one man, Frank Hargraves, who did a fantastic job building up the business. What's it like taking over a business that is so much the creation of one man like that?
Yeah, well, it's interesting, and in this case, what we're trying to do is to tap back into some of that history and the real culture that made this business strong. So, sometimes what you need to do is to put some distance between you and whatever the history of the company is, primarily because you need to be positioning the business for the future, whatever that requires.
But not in this case.
No, in this case, I think that Skilled had got a little far away from its roots, from being pretty down-to-earth, strong relationship, dealing with our clients, dealing with our employees, primarily tradesmen, experienced operators and the like. You don't need too many airs and graces, you don't need too many flash offices and all those sorts of things.
Which is surprising because Frank's son, Greg, was running the business before you.
Yeah, so Frank ran it for 40 years, Greg ran it for 7 or 8. And in that time went through a process of expansion, so grew the business from something like 500 million in revenue to getting on to 2 billion in revenue. But we lost some of the essence of what made Skilled great through that time, and I think it's just a product of expansion and so much change. Secondly, a number of acquisitions, not all of which quite fitted that culture, and weren't necessarily well integrated given the speed at which they occurred. So it's not really a negative about what occurred, it was just saying, well, looking at the broad canvas of what we now have and what we're trying to do with the business, there are elements of the historical strength of the culture and the strength of the brand that we actually want to get back to. And the way I look at that is that in all my experience of turning around businesses, I'd much rather take a strong brand that's lost its way a little bit and recover it than have to invent a brand. I'd much rather take a strong culture that's lost its way a little bit and recover it than invent one from scratch.
Is Frank still around?
Yeah, Frank, he's not involved with the business, but he is still around. In fact,
do you see him?
Yeah, in fact, I spent time with him yesterday out at a picnic race meeting out at Yea. So it's more an informal relationship, as well as dealing with him and his family company as a shareholder. But I've been quite keen right from the start to have a coffee and a chat with Frank to find out how things work. He's still an iconic figure in the business for those people who've been around for a long period of time. But I understand, and certainly Frank understands, that we're not trying to recreate history. We're trying to reinforce those things that gave us strength, but nonetheless position the business for the future.
I noticed that on the list of substantial shareholdings it names Greg Hargraves, not Frank or the Hargraves family. He personally is the shareholder. It's 23.5%.
It's a mixture of two, in the sense that there's 23% of the holding, which is the family. The particular details of how that works is probably a matter for them, but Frank's still involved as part of that 23%. And I think one way to understand this is that prior to the GFC, the Hargraves family held over 50%. And through a couple of capital raisings and so on through the GFC, they're now down to that 23%. That's enabled the business to broaden the register. There's been a lot of change at board level. There's been a new CEO. There's been a new strategy, and it's enabled us in many positive ways to now get on and position the business for the future, rather than being anchored in the past. Despite the fact there've been many positive elements we have taken out of the past, but it really is about growing this business for the future.
Did Greg accept all these changes, or
yes, indeed.
Did he resist?
No, no, Greg was a party to he was still on the board. When I came in, we agreed that he would take a 12 months leave of absence when I came in. And at the end of that 12 months, he felt that it was the right thing to do to step down from the board. So there's no longer any family representation on the board or any involvement. We meet with them as shareholders, as we do other shareholders, but that's all. Now, Greg's been very supportive and of the change, and recognising that what he grew might need a different skill set to then translate into real value for shareholders.
Because it seems like the Skilled is in a sweet spot right now. The labour market is sort of growing. The need to do the big energy projects and mining projects all around the place.
Yeah.
I mean, is that a reasonable assessment?
Yes, we feel we are. We've worked hard to position the business for that sweet spot. Just over half of our business is now in mining and oil and gas. We've sold out of some businesses, call centre businesses and underperforming business in New Zealand, etc., to position the portfolio of businesses where we would like them for the future. We're also very much in that temporary and contract space, primarily in trades, technical professionals, experienced operators. So, your typical trades that you would expect, experienced operators like engineers, draftsmen, project managers, geologists, tremendous demand for those sorts of skills. And therefore our business continues to grow, despite the fact that some competitor businesses who might be in more permanent recruitment into insurance companies or banks would be feeling the pain right now. However, even within our business, we have rapidly growing sectors. In mining, there are pockets of our business growing at 30% plus. But we also have quite some exposure to the traditional areas of manufacturing, transport and logistics and the like, where our clients are under more pressure. So within a pretty good result overall, there's some very strong sectors and some weaker ones.
And what about your own sort of formation as a CEO? You obviously you're a CEO of a JV, convenience store JV, and then COO of Coles for a while. But was it still a big step up to take over as CEO of a listed public company?
Well, I think the answer to that has to be yes. It's always a big step up. But my background, I spent nearly 20 years with Shell, both here in Australia and overseas. I had some exposure to shareholder engagement and so on. I ran the UK business for Shell, which at home market meant that I was attending results and annual general meetings and things like that. Not participating heavily, but at least I started to get that exposure. When I came back, part of the benefit for me of joining Coles, despite the challenging times that business went through, was that I fairly rapidly got exposure to the market side in a way that you don't normally get inside very big companies. So I got a taste for it there. I believed that I could do it, and that the combination of my technical skills, if you like, and leadership skills in terms of running businesses and large teams of people through change process combines pretty well with what I learnt I could do in terms of dealing with the market and shareholders.
And what do you think the most important thing is in being a CEO, particularly of a business like yours, where you're trying to change it and position it in the way that you are?
Well, I think what I've learned is that the most important thing is to be confident, to take a view once you come in, to convey that view with confidence internally, primarily because my background is either a turnaround situation where you need to change the belief of people who might be used to underperforming, who might think that that's just the way it is, or in some cases taking a business that's operating pretty well but believing that you can double or triple the rate at which it's growing, for instance with Coles Express. Both of them are primarily about convincing yourself, first of all, so that you can convey to the team with conviction a very simple, clear strategy. And I think in Skilled's case, I came in with a view. I'd done the numbers in a lot of detail before I'd come in, so that once you're in there, it's less about the numbers and it's more about the people. In Skilled's case, just for particular circumstances, in the first week that I was in, we needed to make a decision, in that case not to sell our Swan contract personnel business to reduce debt with the banks, but to retain that business, which is the best performed business that we've had over the last year. It's very much in the sweet spot, but then we had to go a harder road, selling non-core assets, reducing costs, dramatically improving cash flow to reduce debt.
The easy thing to do would be to sell your best business to cut down debt.
Correct.
But in fact, it was more difficult to sell less good businesses and to
drive the operational cash flow to reduce debt, and then go to the market fairly quickly for a capital raising. And in order to do that, from day one in this business, we were out there engaging with shareholders, which is probably unusual. You'd probably give yourself a little bit of time. Now, you can only do that if you're coming in with a clear view, with conviction, and that only comes through, in my case anyway, through experience and believing that you've seen this sort of situation before, you think this is the way to handle it, and off you go. So my experience over time is that you start out needing to be good at technical managerial things, and over time it becomes more about leadership. In Coles, I had 100,000 people in Skilled in the course of a year. We employ over 50,000 people. These are large numbers of people that you needing to be to influence and build confidence that you're going somewhere and that the change is worth it.
And I guess the interim results helped because definitely showed that the dollars are turning around.
Indeed, we're very pleased with the result for a couple of reasons. One is, as you say, that it demonstrates that we're doing exactly what we said we would do, that in doing those things it's probably producing better financial outcomes than even I thought, particularly in areas like cash generation. And the other point being that I think we've demonstrated the potential of this business because we've produced those results without too much help on the top line, because as I said earlier, we've had moderate growth in the business, in revenue, which has been the trade-off between rapidly growing and some sectors under pressure. So to deliver the numbers without the anticipated top line growth does two things. One, it gives you confidence about what this business could do, and two, we're starting to show signs of developing what I call a high performance culture. And a high performance culture for me is one where you produce your results anyway, and you make sure that you're managing your business in such a way, whether that being the positioning of the businesses that you're in, your mix of variable and fixed costs and so on. But primarily it's about the culture, it's about an attitude that we can do it and we will do it, and we're starting to see some positive signs of that in Skilled.
Great to talk to you, Mick. Thanks for coming.
Thanks very much.